Hello there, welcome to my channel. This is Ishita, and today's video is really special because I have been planning to make this video since a very long time, but I was not making it because I just didn't feel ready enough for it. And today I just thought that let's just make the video no matter what. So yeah, here I am, and so today I want to talk about something really interesting. I mean, Pride and Prejudice, everybody's favorite. I know everybody loves it, and I have always also loved it over the years. And I like how this book and the characters of this book stay relevant to this day. Like, there are videos on YouTube about every single character, and especially the characters who have been ignored in this novel, like Mary Bennet and all. Like, people talk about Mary Bennet, and they kind of explain her character and how she might have felt. They relate with her. They are like their short videos, their TikToks, and all of that. And there are also like fan fictions written on Mary Bennet and Kitty Bennet. So like everybody has been given a lot of importance. Like that just shows how great this book is. Like every character has been examined, every situation, everything has been examined. So in today's video, I want to talk about Lydia Bennet and why she is so hated. And I really want to ask, I really want to question this idea. Like, do we really need to hate her this bad, or do we really need to cut her some slack? Because after all, yeah, I will get on to that in a little bit. So now that I've introduced the video, so let us get on with it in a systematic manner. So Lydia Bennet was the youngest of all the sisters, and she was only 15 when the novel begins. And like, I have never liked how the other sisters who were not Elizabeth and Jane, how they were not really represented in a good way. Like, I've always felt this discontentment with how they were represented. Like, while I was in college, like, I read this novel when I was younger, but in college I learned how to question this work. And I was very disappointed with how the other sisters, how especially Mary Bennet was treated, and also Lydia Bennet was treated. Like, I felt like the narrative was only working in the favor of Elizabeth and Jane, which I get because they were the central characters. Like, Elizabeth was the central character, and after her, Jane was probably the most important sister. But the others were really caricatured. Their presentation was really caricaturish. Like, Mary was depicted as somebody who was pretending to be intellectual, while Elizabeth was the actual witty and intellectual person without even trying. She was just charming. She had this glow in her eyes, and whatever she said was really witty, and she was dignified. And Jane was also like the prettiest of all the sisters. She was soft spoken, she was polite. Like, these two were really respected in the community around, and also by their own father. Like, I have some very serious problems with Mr. Bennet. Like, we have been made to believe that Mrs. Bennet is the real weird lady and the weird person in their relationship, but I actually think that she was the one who had actual idea about the society, and who was really trying to save her daughters from a very major ruin, major financial dependence and ruin, which might have happened after the death of Mr. Bennet, when the house would have been would have been inherited by Mr. Collins. And Mr. Bennet does not seem to be all that worried about this fact, because he knows that after his death, the house would pass on to somebody else. And if his daughters are not married well, they might be on the verge of financial ruin, because there will be nobody to look after them. They will be practically homeless and at the mercy of kind relatives. So in that regard, Mrs. Bennet was really the one who had understanding of the situation and the economic circumstances of the time, and how as a woman one needed to fend for herself. So that is why she was always so worried about getting them married, and she was constantly nervous about that they're not married yet. And she had 5 daughters, and she knew what the danger was looming. So anyway, that was a little tidbit about that couple, Mrs. and Mr. Bennet. So the problem was, I was talking really about how Mr. Bennet was problematic, and he also played favorites among his daughters. Like, he only respected Elizabeth Bennet just because she was well read, and she was more like her. She was not as stupid and attention seeking like like the rest of the daughters. So yeah, that was a bit problematic. So I feel like Lydia has been really misunderstood because we have only been taught to see her as somebody who was selfish, who was reckless, who did not care about the situation she was putting her family into through her reckless actions. But it was not really her fault entirely, because we really need to realize that at the end of the day, she was just a 15-year-old when this novel began, and she was just turning 16 when she got married to Wickham. So instead of looking at her as some sort of culprit, we really need to feel sorry for her rather, because she became a victim of extremely weird influences that were around her. Like, she always as a youngest daughter, she might have felt very ignored, because as we have seen how respected Elizabeth and Jane were in the community, and how respectful they were in the eyes of their father and everyone else. So as the youngest daughter, she might have felt ignored, which she was, which we also see that how the rest of the three youngest daughters are not really given a lot of attention. They are caricatured. Like, the upper two ones are well fleshed out characters, but the next three ones, the youngest three sisters, are really not well fleshed out characters. They are really, like, Mary is the bore, like, pseudo intellectual one trying really hard to please and gain everybody's acceptance, and Kitty and Lydia are reckless, selfish, flirtatious, dying for male attention. So that's how they have been shown. And Lydia might have felt really ignored in all of this because she was youngest, and youngest children often feel that they are ignored. And she obviously didn't have a father's respect, because her father was already very much preoccupied with Elizabeth and how great she was. So the only way to gain respect in the family was to win the respect of her mother, the other parent. And we see that how Lydia was the favorite of her mother, of Mrs. Bennet. Mrs. Bennet actually adored Lydia because probably she was more like her, and she understood how the world worked, like, and all of that. So yeah, that was like that. And Lydia felt like she also needed to get acceptance, much like all the other sisters, because everyone was fighting for their parents' attention. I feel like, if we look at them psychologically, every sister was trying to gain some sort of acceptance. Like, Mary was trying it through her intellect, and Lydia was trying it through her flirtatiousness. She was trying to gain a lot of male attention. So she was actually in this hurry to get married, because that was the only option available to her to beat her sisters. Like, she could only win at this game, because she knew that she was good at this. She was likable. She was a good she used to talk a lot. She was sociable. So this was the only thing that she could possibly do, because there were not a lot of ways for women to prove their mettle or to prove that they were good enough. This was the only way. She knew that if she got married before her other sisters, she would gain the respect of her mother and also the community in her misguided way. That's what she was probably thinking, and hence she was behaving like that. She knew that marriage was the only option available, and that's how she was behaving. And she wasn't, in her motivations, she wasn't very different from her other sisters, because the upper two sisters, they were also trying to get married. Like, Elizabeth also wanted to get married well and with someone who was a good suitor, and this and that. Same was with Jane. So it was not like she was doing anything weird by wanting to get married. Yes, her manners were a bit reckless, so that reflects more on her parents' parenting rather than her own failing. She was just 15. Let's not forget that again. So she wanted attention, and this was the misguided way in which she thought that she might get some attention.